The second-generation Toyota Tundra, despite our not-so-special passion for pickups, turns out to be many times more popular than the large, high-status Toyota Sequoia SUV built on its basis. Still, the Russian consumer saw through the peculiar charms of the passenger and freight body, imbued, so to speak, with overseas love for convenient farm transport. One way or another, but the Tundra is a worthy hero in order to understand whether the car is worthy of people's love in terms of reliability and resource. The base is the 4.0-liter V6 1GR FE, which, however, was installed only on the rear-wheel drive Tundra. These are practically not brought to us. Meanwhile, the engine under repair is already familiar from other Toyota models. May suffer from seizures in the cylinders. Well known, and again more often for other models, is the 4.7-liter 8.2UZ FE. The Tundra still comes across, and if someone does not have enough power and torque, then he can console himself with the fact that this is a very reliable engine. They do not differ in long service life, except that the bearings of the timing bypass rollers and the pump located in the collapse of the block. Salt and reagents can damage the generator, but the resource of the block and piston can be safely estimated at more than 500,000 km. In 2010, the 2UZ replaced the 4.6-liter V8 1UR FE, and the 5.7-liter 8.3UR FE has existed since the beginning of production. The latter is the most popular in Russia. The motors received a timing chain drive, the Senior V8 from 2009, another FBE version that could run on a mixture of gasoline and ethanol. Of the differences in this modification, other nozzles, software, and piston rings are called, as well as the alleged impossibility of switching to gas supply and more stable starts at low temperatures. The engines are already disposable, however. There are examples with runs of more than 600,000 kilometers, at least on our popular 5.7-liter. By today's standards, a decent figure, even taking into account the volume. And yet there are some points that need to be considered when buying and operating. For example, as mentioned above, the TRD department installed a compressor on the 3UR, and everything was in order with the motor. But the charger was also installed here, often without a corresponding adaptation of the fuel system. As a result, from improper mixture formation, overheating, burnouts of pistons, breaks of connecting rods occurred. By inheritance from the UZ series UR got problems with the pump, after 150,000 kilometers, also located in the collapse of the block. There is also a feature that can ruffle the nerves. In order for the catalysts not to suffer from an enriched mixture during cold starts, the designers provided two electric pumps with a valve system. They drive air directly into the catalysts, turning off as they warm up. Located in the right front fender, they do not suffer by themselves, but their valves after 150,000 kilometers can turn sour from road dust and salt. The ECU sees this and checks. In Russia, they have learned to bypass the valves by installing tricks. There were also isolated cases of water hammer when the Tundra was left in cold weather on an alarm with heating. From prolonged unsuccessful attempts to start, the combustion chambers were filled with gasoline. And, on the contrary, there were situations in which, under similar conditions, gasoline got into the oil, which caused accelerated wear of the piston group and block. Again, a few cases. In general, URs can be considered reliable units. Transmission. The Tundra was equipped with 5 and 6-speed automatics. The first one, A750F, existed with 1GR and 2UZ. If you do not get involved in intense acceleration, slippage, off-road, and change the oil after 40 to 60,000 kilometers, then the box is able to live up to 150 to 200,000 kilometers or even more. But otherwise, before 100,000, the torque converter lock may be the first to give up. It's where products will begin to age, the solenoids and the entire hydraulic plate. Then, the burning of friction clutches, possibly a rolled-up oil pump bushing, and 100 to 120,000 rubles. For repairs, there is information that during the first restyling, the A750F on the younger engines was replaced with the 6-speed A760F. In this case, you need to prepare for the same precautions and mileage to repair, tied to their observance. Alas, all the same is typical for the 6-speed AB60F, which was aggregated with 3UR from the very beginning. Yes, the box is designed for the impressive power and torque of the 5.7-liter G8. However, now the very principles of operation of automatic machines, primarily early, in this case from third gear, a blocking torque converter, do not leave hope for a long resource without proper maintenance even with a loose ride. On the plus side, the overhaul is estimated at the same 100 to 120,000. But to the Tundra, no questions. Is that one? Why is it without a center differential, part-time all-wheel drive circuit? For Americans, it's customary. Recall that there is also a rear-wheel drive Tundra. For us, not always, so a transfer case with full-time is often installed on a pickup truck. But it only fits LX 570 or TLC 200 with diesel or 4.6-liter V8. We are talking about the 5.7-liter Tundra version. There was a 6-speed automatic, and on the Tundra, from it the shaft is identical in diameter to the AB60F shaft. And so the bolt fits into the bolt, requiring only the replacement of the rear cardan flange, which is simple, and the crossing of the switching actuators, which is difficult. True, you still need to block the fork in the front axle, which is responsible for engaging one of the axle shafts. Meanwhile, in Russia there is a proposal for a control unit that facilitates work with electronics and allows you to move with the full-time RK on rear-wheel drive and on full. The cost of transferring to this type of drive is about 80,000 rubles. True, all this practically does not matter for the Tundra, which has been produced since 2013. Then the Borg-Warner handout was adopted. In terms of electrics, changing it to a Toyota differential unit is extremely difficult. There are a couple more interesting places in the transmission that you need to know about. A certain polymer is applied to the splines of the rear cardan. When it is erased, about 150,000 kilometers, a noticeable blow is felt when braking or turning on reverse. To fix the problem, the boot is removed and grease is stuffed under it into the spline connection. Enough for several thousand kilometers. You can't solve another malfunction with grease. On machines with a compressor, it doesn't matter. From TRD or tuned on their own, the rear gearbox is falling apart. We are talking specifically about pickups with part-time, since switching to full-time could certainly solve the problem with an overabundance of torque on one main pair and differential. And so acceleration to the floor and frequent slippage make the satellite stick to the axis, work it out and tear your fingers. The axle costs about 5,000 rubles, a set of satellites, about 15,000. But it happens that the main pair is destroyed. Everything in the collection is already 70,000. Suspension. Front double lever on powerful levers, rear solid bridge on the springs. In stock and on standard wheels, only 255/70 are 18 or 32 outer inches. All elements, lower ball joints, by the way, bolted, removable, can move at least 100,000 kilometers. Of course, the style of riding and the surfaces on which the Tundra rides are greatly influenced here. However, even gravel directions are not able to drastically undermine the safety margin inherent in the design. Unfortunately, there is one but that crosses out all the advantages of the pickup chassis. Despite the impressive dimensions and even the tow haul package, a package for towing a trailer, including a tow hitch, a certain gearbox and throttle operation algorithm and an automatic cooler, the Tundra is not a truck. You can find such information about the carrying capacity. They say 2,000 pounds, that is, something around 1,000 kilograms. This Toyota is not designed for a ton in any way. The springs are located almost horizontally, and with such a load they tend to bend in the opposite direction. More realistic information about 750 kilograms carrying capacity, and taking into account passengers. Therefore, tuning is not needed in order to install larger wheels, to ensure that the functionality is better suited to the type of vehicle. Well, the suspension lift goes, so to speak, coupled with an increase in carrying capacity. Suspension components for the Tundra are offered by many well-known tuning companies. And if something is not available under specific brands, for example, Tough Dog, you can borrow from the kits for the TLC 200. Some elements are interchangeable. A native kit from OME for 75mm in front and 60mm in the back costs about 120,000 rubles. Includes 35-inch wheels. It makes no sense to fence structures with a 4 or 6-inch lift, as in the photo at the top right. This does not increase the ground clearance, except perhaps the ramp angle, but it does increase the center of gravity. In general, for the sake of increasing the carrying capacity, you can leave the standard springs at the rear by mounting air springs on top of them. Those are offered from Russian companies and as part of a system that can be controlled from the salon, about 80,000 rubles. But you can put pillows from trucks. When pumped from an external source, it will cost 25,000. Closer to 100,000 kilometers, the the spline connection on the steering shaft under the front panel wears out, which is expressed in bumps on the steering wheel. Someone, it happens, does not notice this, apparently. It depends on which reach the steering wheel is adjusted on. With the same runs, the power steering hose may burst. Often, a couple of times a year or once every 10 to 15,000 kilometers, you have to change the cabin filter. In addition, the air conditioning fan is annoying with its noise. And this, perhaps, is all the troubles that Tundra owners may face. By modern standards, a very modest set.